the Odyssey to see the new Bohemian-Rhapsody film, which is a biopic about Freddie Mercury's life. And it was absolutely fantastic, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed it. Obviously, a lot of it, there's been a bit of artistic license, and a lot of the details are kind of added in just for the story. But I thought it was fantastic, to be honest. I really enjoyed it, and it was a fantastic tribute to Freddie Mercury. But walking into the Odyssey, it's just so desolate now. It's crazy. As soon as you walk in, you've Rockies on your right, which is only ever busy when the Belfast Giants are on, and then to your left is Box, or where Box used to be, which is closed down. You continue on, you've got the street, which is open, but right to the left of it, Soda Joe's is closed down as well. Taking the stairs up, you've got the Red Panda, which is also closed. I think the bar across from it, which used to be Bar 7 way, way long ago, it's closed down as well. The Tasca Spanish tapas bar, it's also closed. It's just the whole building is desolate when we could have a lot of businesses in there and make that a bit of a hub. But I think what happened there was when the Odyssey was created or built, all the businesses received like a subsidy, which they were able to use, and I think that was to promote themselves. They were supposed to be using that, but many of the businesses used that money to kind of pay for staff and keep afloat. And then once that money ran out and there wasn't anybody coming along, it just closed down. So it's sad to see, to be honest, and just feel like there's a huge space there, especially the Titanic Quarter and the Titanic Museum, which is always packed with people. I'd say any tourist that accidentally stumbles into the Odyssey, they must be bored senseless or wonder, is this place still open? So it'd be great to see some development there and more businesses going in. I just can't imagine like people coming for concerts or going to the Belfast Giants. All there is Rockies there. I think there's a Pizza Hut which may be closed down as well, and beside it there was I think it was like an Indian restaurant which is also closed. So I don't know if there's any plans on knocking it down or just redeveloping it, but I really hope there is. But it was interesting going and watching that Freddie Mercury film because there was a couple of links to Belfast in that as well. But I suppose the upside of the Odyssey being empty is, the cinema is always empty, and it's good going there just because, you've got the choice of every seat in the house basically. But I wonder how long that's going to last and how long the cinema is going to stay open if they're not getting the footfall. So finally, this week and over the past couple of weeks leading up to today, there's been a lot of talk around Remembrance with the 100th anniversary of Armistice Day, the end of the First World War. As always with Northern Ireland, we like to make things a little bit more political and add a bit more controversy into things. So over the past few years, James-mcclean, a Derry-born footballer who plays for the Republic of Ireland and currently plays for Stoke, but played for West Brom and other teams in England, he had been subject to a lot of press about refusing to wear the poppy because of what happened in Bloody Sunday and everything, and again that came around, and it's just seems like lazy journalism and just a way of kicking up a fuss and causing issues when there doesn't need to be. And it's just, as soon as I seen the post from, I think it was the Belfast Telegraph reported it again, as if it was new news, but it wasn't at all. He hasn't wore it, ever. So just seeing that was mind numbing. But yeah, over the past couple of weeks, there's just been so much, and Northern Ireland is an interesting one when it comes around to remembrance and everything. I kind of feel like people are almost forced to, wear the poppy over here, or forced to. It's nearly like a remembrance police. When people have different ways of marking centenaries and different ways of remembering people, I don't wear a poppy, but that's not because I don't want to remember or respect the people who died. I went to see the Somme when I was in France at the Euros. Family members, ancestors and relatives that were involved in conflicts. My great grandfather was a Navy minesweeper, a Royal Navy minesweeper in the First World War. I believe he survived the war. Then my great uncle, I think, is my grandfather's brother, basically. He was a British soldier in the Second World War, and he was evacuated in Dunkirk. So the events that the film was about, which I only found out very recently after speaking to my grandfather. And then my other grandfather, he was in the RAF, so he was originally from Manchester, joined the RAF, was a gunner, I believe, and was also a drill sergeant. He fought in Cyprus, and so I do have that links to conflicts like that, and the sacrifice that those men made in the First World War and the Second World War, is just crazy, and it's heartbreaking the amount of men that died for those conflicts, and you kind of just think, what was it all for? When I was living and working in Washington DC, I worked for a couple of months in the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, and you kind of feel such a connection to those conflicts, because when I was working there, I got to meet some of the Holocaust survivors that would come in and speak and just chat about their experiences, and it's very hard not to kind of weep and get emotional when you hear their stories. There was one man who was about 14, I think, when his family were rounded up and put on a train to Auschwitz. While he was on the train, he put on a couple of coats to stay warm, because I think it was in the middle of the winter. And as everybody was piled off the train carriages, women and children were put in the queue to the left, and on the right was men and young men who were able to work. So because this man had a couple of coats on, it made him seem much bigger and much older than he actually was. So he was put in the queue to the right, and so he was standing with his father and his uncle in this queue, wondering why his mother and his sister were split up in the other queue. So he got very emotional, and he tried to run across and get to his mother and his sister, but his uncle grabbed him by the coat and pulled him back. And at the time, he was so angry and so annoyed that he couldn't go over and see his mother. But it turned out that his uncle had basically saved his life, because that line that his mother was in was the line of people who were going to get gassed basically straight away. I think that was at a stage in the war where they only wanted people to work. They couldn't house or hold anybody more. So yeah, it's just things like that are heartbreaking, and it kind of, it's a bit of a tragic pride in our armed forces, and the US armed forces that defeated the Nazis, and things like that. I remember and I'm grateful for it, because the Nazis were monsters, and killed so many people. So that's something I think we should be proud of, and everybody should be proud of, because the British Army helped defeat the Nazis. But I can also see people's criticisms of the army, and why some people wouldn't be too keen to support the army, or to wear poppies and things like that. None of my family were affected by the army during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. The army didn't do any raids of any houses of my families, but you can see how maybe like a family in, I know, West Belfast, to use it as an example again, you can see how a child maybe, growing up in a family there where the army might have busted through the door and done a search. You can see how it stays in their head that they see the army as, evil, or not an institution to kind of hold all this respect for, which I think is completely understandable. And I think you'd be an idiot not to accept somebody's refusal to mark like a centenary because of that. But I think you're also you'd also be foolish if you used that as an example and kind of tarnished everybody who does mark Remembrance Day as being monsters and supporting this kind of thing, because I know there's a lot of people that do think that, and a lot of people also think that others that wear the poppy are wearing it because they support absolutely everything the British Army did, when I'd say a lot of people wore the poppy as a reminder of the people who died during the First and Second World Wars, and that's it. It stops there. And if I was to wear a poppy, I would probably do so as well. But there's obviously conflicts that I wouldn't have agree about. There's a few things that the British Army did during the Troubles that are, set very uneasy with me. Also, you're talking about like Iraq and Afghanistan, two wars which I believe should never have happened, and the UK should never have got involved in those wars. Is that the army's fault? No, it's the British government's fault, because the army basically followed the orders of the government at the time. Even the Falklands War, I think there's been more soldiers that have killed themselves after the Falklands War than actually died during that conflict. So there's a few things that kind of sit uneasy with me. I think we need to be careful as well about how we commemorate, like the 100th anniversary of the First World War and the Second World War, because it's very easy to say, these bombers flew over and bombed Germany and came back and survived, and they helped win the war and everything. But on the flip side, there was probably thousands of German civilians who were under Nazi rule, Nazi oppression, that probably got killed by Allied bombs as well, in instances where that's just tragic to me as well. These people, not everybody supported the Nazis, for example, and I think the civilian death toll would have been very, very high as well. So I think in periods like this, we should remember all those victims who got killed, be it British soldiers or be it innocent civilians, and we should have that as a reminder of not to go to wars like this, because there's too many people's lives taken for nothing. And it does sound bad when I'm saying about the Iraq and Afghanistan wars not needing to happen, but that's not to take away people who did die in those wars and what they were doing. Their bravery is something to be respected and acknowledged. But I just think the Afghanistan and Iraq wars should never have happened. We went to Afghanistan because the US went all in after 9/11 to try and